This is the Alcohol Freedom Finders. This week we're joined by fellow This Naked Mind coach, Corina, who didn't think she had a problem with alcohol at all. She was a working mother, highly successful and functioning well, until she wasn't. When she hit her mid-40s, she was hit by a double dose of stress. Her son was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome and her mother with cancer. This moment of extreme vulnerability forced Corina to take a long, hard look at her drinking. Was it really the elixir that she was hoping it was, or was it preventing her from approaching this tough time calmly and with grace? Corina joins us today to share her journey, which includes her specialist perspective on working with adolescents and those from a Latin American cultural background. Bring it on, Corina.
So everybody, welcome to Alcohol Freedom Finders. Today we have Karina Koplock, who's also This Naked Mind coach. So pleased to have Karina with us. Karina has been coaching for 2 years and also loves speaking to young people about the trials and tribulations of alcohol, as well as being a specialist in perhaps a Spanish angle. So we'll look forward to hearing more about your journey and your story, Karina.
Great. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, no, it's really nice to meet you, Corina. So we'll take us back. Yeah, take us back and tell us a little bit about your journey and when you realized perhaps that you needed to change your relationship with alcohol. When did that come about for you?
Well, I like to say I've been a boozer for a long time. I would always say, so that was many, many years. My drinking started when I was really young. But what was weird that I found weird is I never thought I had a problem until I hit my 40s. I had just finished. I worked in corporate for many years, busy, traveled not only around the U.S., but around the world. And it was always, drinking was part of that culture. I never thought it was an issue. At that time, I had 2 small kids and I decided to open an indoor cycling studio. I've been teaching for many years and I said, I just want to try something different, stay more at home with the kids. And I think that's where things got really tough for me. I had that liberty of, I'm not at work. I have a very flexible schedule. I would teach classes, have my studio, but I had a lot of free time, right? I would drop off the kids at school and I was at home. I was like, all right. I would have a glass of wine, in the refrigerator, a bottle. And I was like, I'll just drink a little bit, right? Whether it's 12 o'clock, it's not like I'm going to get hammered. And I really never got drunk. But then I started drinking that. Then I closed my studio. And then the stress of having small kids, I would always say, I found myself with another job, right? I went back to work. And then it was like every single night I would come back from work and then it was already normal. I would go ahead and open a bottle of wine while I had dinner. And then, of course, that was every single night. But then again, I wasn't drunk. I was functioning. I would still wake up at 4:30 in the morning to teach my early classes, then go to work. I mean, I was highly functional, but I was tired, right? I was constantly, tonight I'm only going to drink 2 glasses, right? But again, my glasses of wine which I thought was like, it's only 2 glasses of wine, but they were filled to the rim. And that made me felt psychologically, right? That's not a problem. And then, of course, then Thursday was closer to the weekend. So then I could drink a little bit more because it was the pre-weekend. And then it was Friday and Saturday, of course, you have to go drinking, right? And I would go out and have social life, but it was always around drinking. And then me thinking not having to drink was on a weekend was so bizarre. If somebody would have told me this person doesn't drink, I seriously thought that they had a drinking problem or they were weird. Like I never associated myself with anybody that didn't drink, right, in my circle of friends. So I really never thought I had a problem. But my body was already taking it a little bit too much, right? I drank too much a night. And then I was like, why did I drink? And then you have that when you wake up in the morning, like so mad. But I felt like all of my kids years of being young, like I missed out because I always wanted to put them to sleep early and drinking was more important. But it wasn't until 2022, towards the end of 2021. So going into, because it was New Year's, my son got diagnosed with Tourette's. And that really took me to a whole new level of stress that I had not experienced before. I also felt I'm very close to my mom. She lives close by, and she had some kind of health issues. And deep in my heart, I knew she was gonna. They were gonna diagnose her that she had cancer. And those two things really got me thinking about what I needed to do to change my relationship. Just because Tourette's, if you don't know much about Tourette's, but Tourette's is you become obsessed with a lot of stuff, and it's really triggered by, it can be very, it's mental. So you have to really be calm. And of course, it is, as we have learned now, alcohol in young adults or adults that drink that have Tourette's also triggers that a lot. So I was thinking, like, if I want my child to grow up to be, healthy and not have this, what kind of example am I putting for him? So that really kind of started my journey to thinking about, should I really be doing this and drinking? But I really never had a rock bottom for people. A lot of times people are like, oh, it was bad. I mean, I've got plenty of stories of me and my drinking days, but it was just that inner me that said, wait a minute, can this thing, alcohol liquid, have so much control over me? So
I resonate with so much of your story already, and I'm sure Barry does too, the sort of how it just sneaks up on you. There's something that seems like it's just a little bit of a help, right? And of course,
right.
mother's little helper, and you're self-employed, so you've got more time at home, all of the stuff, and it's just creeping in. But what I was listening to yesterday and really resonated with me was, when we're drinking, we're able to get through our life. We're still able to get to work. We're still able to get to the spinning class. We're still able to do the stuff, but nothing extra. We're not able to live our life in a way that's full of joy, and a weekend that goes, do you know what? I'm going to go for a hike, or I'm going to take my kids, do something with the kids, or I'm just so happy to drive them everywhere, because you're sort of free to choose, the freedom to choose.
Right.
Right. So knowing what you knew about your life, how did you then turn it around from the situation where you were drinking more than you wanted to? You thought people were weird that didn't drink. Your mum wasn't that well, and your son had Tourette's. What did you do to turn it around for yourself?
Well, 2 weeks after, so December 3rd, I decided, I'm like, I'm just going to stop. Like, I'm going to stop. But I had started reading about alcohol and that it was a poison. And I'm like, seriously, if it would be a poison, like they say, I need a lot of science and backup. I'd be like, there's no way people are drinking, they would allow people to have alcohol. But I started kind of reading more into it. My mom got diagnosed with cancer. So I stopped January 3rd. My mom was diagnosed with cancer on the 6th. And I was mainly her caregiver. And it kind of put a pause okay, like somebody's slapping you, like, you really have to take control over this, because this year is going to be tough. I read a lot of Annie's Grace's. I read her book. And then I also started going into different stuff about what is it, alcohol, what it does to you. I heard podcasts. And it was more of the first month was like you would hold on to be like, oh, this is hard. It was hard because I stopped. Like when I said I was going to stop drinking, I stopped. But I was still not convinced as to when I wanted to drink again or when it would be. So I kind of gave myself, I guess, grace without knowing any methodology or doing that. I was like, let me just try this and see how it goes. So I stopped completely, cold turkey. That's how I stopped drinking. And the more I did research, the more I learned about alcohol, was I was so curious about how the best way to describe it is like I felt like I had been lied to. I was like, why hasn't like it's one of those things that you learn so much. And I'm like, why hasn't anybody like why are we sitting? There's so many times I always think about this. There's so many times we want the best for our kids, right? We're like, oh, you know, I would do anything for them. But then yet there was so many nights that I've spent, you know, dinner at the table. I would have my glass of wine. My husband would have beer or wine, whatever. And I would reprimand them for having sugar, right? I mean, you're like, no, you're having water. You know, you need to learn how to eat healthy. We worry so much about what we put in our body, but alcohol is different, right? Now, alcohol, I never thought it as one of those things that why would I not do that same for alcohol? So
Yeah, no, it gets such a free pass, and I think, I mean, it's everywhere. Obviously, our culture is it's just fully ingrained into the culture, and I think it's perpetuated by the alcohol industry. Obviously, it's in their interest that it's normalized, but yeah, I really resonate with that. That when you start to realize, you see it for what it is, you sort of burst the illusion. Then you sort of think, oh my God, there's so much disinformation out there, and that even that it's addictive. People are surprised at sometimes. And you sort of think, I thought it was the people that got addicted. They were the problem, and not the fact that it was an addictive substance. And I think that's often the for me at least, that was the thing that kept me from making a change, because you sort of think, well, I just everybody drinks, drinking's normal, that's what we do. But actually, it's just like sugar. It's an addictive thing, and you don't have to wait until you're the size of a house and got diabetes to question whether it's a thing. It can be when you start getting cavities in your teeth, whatever it is, you can catch it at a very early stage. And so how did you then approach it? Because I struggle with that idea of, well, that's what I do for fun. People ask me, well, what do you do for kicks now? How did you rationalize that with yourself and change your approach?
I know my answer might not be a popular one. A lot of people might not like, but I really had to isolate and I'm not saying I became antisocial, but from, my family, I'm close to my sister, I met my husband drinking. I didn't isolate from him, but it was more of, I needed some time to really think about, I wouldn't call it temptation for a while, I just didn't want to, it was, I'll give you an example. I would go over to some friend's house, right? That we've always hung out and party. And I stayed there, 2 hours, 3, me drinking, because I would always be drinking. It was more like 5 hours. And then of course we would finish the last bottle, even go buy more. And I had fun, don't get me wrong. But that's not what I would do it. When you're not drinking, I can still have a blast 2 hours, and then I would go home. And then a lot of times they would be like, oh, Karina, you're so boring. Or why are you leaving so early? Are you not having fun? And I was having fun. I was just tired. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm ready to go to bed. So it was more of just doing different things with my kids, enjoying them more and not necessarily do other stuff. So I started new activities. I for once enjoyed watching TV or watching a movie with my kids. I can't tell you from when they were born till they were 10 years old or 12. I really can't remember much about any movies that I watched. Again, I was not 100% drunk. Maybe sometimes, but I have no recollection. And that's the other thing. When I noticed that I needed to start drinking is I didn't remember things. And it was if I would talk to somebody the next day, they would never think I was like hammered or drunk. I just started not remembering things, like pieces of the night or what happened during the day. And again, it's just such a scary thought. Of course, I didn't say one of the moments. A lot of times I would be the designated driver because I looked so good driving. One with my kids in the car, even though it's like 3 minutes from here, 5 minute drive. But I drove drunk. It's a miracle how I never got a DUI, because I certainly could have gotten more than once, with my kids, and I love them to death. That's the scary part. Alcohol makes you do things, addiction, to the people that you love.
Yeah.
And that's why I never try judging. But I kind of really stepped back a little bit just to kind of figure things out. I just had me time. I started, like I said, reading a lot, learning about it, kind of getting healthier inside and out. That's the best way to explain.
I think lots of people notice that once they are able to realize it's alcohol and it's not them, it's the first thing, that there's more space in their life to try and explore other things. They realize that they're not necessarily as happy to go in and spend time with people who are still in the alcohol game. And that's fair, right? Because as you say, once we're three drinks deep, the frontal, we know the science, the frontal brain switches off. So the memories aren't going to be laid down. So we aren't going to remember most of the night. That's just facts. And we're going to start repeating ourselves and tell stories. Maybe, I don't know about you, but you hear the same story like 3 times in a night, right? Oh, God.
Yes.
And the other thing that I've really noticed is the kind of social anxiety side of drinking and not drinking. So I notice now when things go wrong for me, or I feel like I've had a disconnect with someone in the past, that would have taken me down and probably would have made me want to drink more wine that day. And now I'm like, okay, so just in the same way that I now go, it's not me, it's alcohol. I can now say it's not me, it's them. It gives us feel like it gives us our power back, not just with the drinking side of things and the drink driving side of things, but across the board.
Right.
We're able to start feeling to, hey, no, I'm okay here. This is, I'm in a good place. This is not about me. This is about it, them, the substance. So that sort of sense of control. What would you say to someone who is looking to maybe reframe their relationship? Mine is more about you getting control back. What would you say the real gain for you's been in reframing your relationship?
I think it's getting to know, feeling comfortable with yourself. I really never thought, and this has been like not until like last year. I always, we learned so much about alcohol, and it's either you're running away from something, you're not. And to me, it didn't feel that way. Like, again, I had fun, and I had fun since I can remember, those moments. But now that I think back, it finally hit me. A lot of times you're stressed, you drink. You're happy, celebrate, you drink. But it's finding yourself, feeling comfortable with who you are, right? This is who I am, happy, sad. A lot of times we try to escape, even if it was fun, it was to be at a different high, right? At a different moment, but you're not being yourself. It's kind of finding yourself, who you are and who you feel comfortable liking yourself. I think I've started to, not that I think I've always been a person that I liked myself, just my personality, but I've kind of accept who I am, right? This is who I am. Are there things that I could do much better? Of course, there's always room for improvement, but I didn't have to escape. I don't have to be that talkative if I don't want to, right? But a lot of times while I was drinking, I wasn't that person who I thought I was when I drank, right? I could, it was so funny, but that lasted a little bit. Then I got into that little area that you start repeating yourself and you're really not that cool. It's the alcohol, right? That you think you're super cool, that you have superpowers. So I guess it's just finding your own superpowers. That's the way to see it, is, just being happy with who you are, accepting. And if you don't like something, that you could actually change it without having a substance to make you change.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think I've learned looking back and looking at other sides of other parts of my life, and it's sort of, it's the way that society is in general now. Is that we are really tempted to consume something to make ourselves feel different, to make ourselves feel happier, feel comforted, feel, and it could be sugar, it can be a cigarette, it could be, other drugs, or it can be, scrolling, or and consuming social media. And I can hear with you as well that drinking was this go-to for fun, but then it became, because it's what you're shown, it's the solution to everything. And so when life gets tough, when you feel a bit lonely, when you're trying to pick yourself up because you're at home, and the kids are stressful, whatever, you do turn to it, and we often talk about it. You give it another job to do for you, and it just becomes that little bit more important, and it worms its way in, and that's how it sort of starts to take control, because it just mounts up the reasons that you drink, and steadily, and it might not be a huge amount. I never drank much during the day, and I functioned and went to work and had no problem. So I didn't drink when I was at work, but eventually it's just that the reliance you have on it, you look forward to it a little bit too much. So when you're looking back now, what surprised you in a good way? What are the things that you would never have expected to perhaps enjoy, or to see yourself being now, in comparison to how life was when you were still drinking?
One that comes to mind is being able to, as silly as it sounds, being able to wake up on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and I feel good. I feel good. I feel good. I can go hiking. I could do it. I can stay in bed if I want to, do nothing, but I don't feel sick. I just don't feel like I've wasted. I felt so many years, again, looking back, I'm like, man, I wasted so much of my hours because I was so tired. And then, just being happy, being able to, that surprised me too. I, I just have my son that started driving. So maybe that's not, but prior to 3 weeks ago, it was having to pick them up and not worry. I'd be like, yeah, they go out and then pick them up from a friend's house. My oldest one is a social butterfly, like go and pick them up from this house, from that, and not have to worry that can I drink, or if the cop stops me when I'm driving, I can speed down. Not that I did, but I don't have to worry getting all paranoid if a cop is gonna stop you. And then it's that clarity that you have. I just feel my liver, I really do feel, I don't know if you could feel, but I really feel like my body is so good because I just don't put that poison, and it's overall just health. And that you can really, I like I said, maybe at the beginning, the first few months, I did feel like I was missing out. But like I always tell people, I've gone to weddings, I've gone to parties, concerts. I have never the next day woken up and said, "Man, I just feel I too bad. I wish I would have drank." Like, not once, not once. Like, I've never regretted not drinking. And I think that is what I felt so much. Or I have family members still tell me the other day, they're like, "Really? I mean, like, don't you miss?" I'm like, "I don't." And I would be honest. I would tell you, yeah, I miss it sometimes, but I really don't. It has nothing. I feel good just because it makes me feel so good and accomplished, in the sense of, I'm going to take over this day. And again, you can have bad days, good days, but I've never, the next day, I've never woken up and said, I wish I would have drank, I've never had that regret. So that's a good thing.
I love that for you. I'm listening to a book at the moment, and he was giving the stats around, for those that are just regular drinkers, I'm just talking about maybe weekend drinkers, they are losing about 100 days of every year to feeling crappy. So,
Yeah, for sure.
so you feeling the way you do, and feeling sort of slightly smug and happy about feeling and looking good is real. I bumped into one of my dad's friends 2 days ago. I was out doing a yoga workshop, because that's what you do on a Saturday, right? And I was just grabbing my decaf coffee at lunch break before I went for a cold water swim. and I bumped into this guy, friend of Dan's, and he goes, "Oh my God, you look amazing. And this is like hair off the face, not a scrap of makeup, just in the coffee shop in a lunch break." And he's like, "You look incredible. You look," and like said it 3 times, "You just look really well." And that kind of feel good factor takes over from any negative effect on a night out when you have to spend that first hour going, "Yeah, I'm just gonna get through this little bit of anxiety and then I'll be good." That beats 100 days a year of feeling crappy and knowing that you feel and look good, the best that you can. That is priceless. So
I love
what is something that you would say to someone that's maybe considering or about to toy with the idea of not drinking? What's something that's maybe surprised you, or what's the thing that's been most surprising about stopping drinking?
Well, I think to start off, like what I would tell somebody is, I think we live in a world, in a society where everything is extremes, right? Like you don't have to, if you want to stop, take a break if you want to. If your break is every other day, that's an accomplishment. You don't have to think everything is like, I'll stop drinking tomorrow and I'm never going to drink again, right? Like you don't have to like take one day at a time and say, let me experiment how this will feel. Take it day by day, week by week. And you can always go back, go forth. But just the more you learn, the better you feel. If your goal is to stop drinking completely, don't think of the end. Like my advice would be never think I'm never going to drink again, because that's hard psychologically. If you've been drinking for a lot of years and just wrapping your head around that, it's hard, right? Then you already you fail without even starting yet. So, just be kind, take it day by day and consider that the FOMO is real. I think a lot of the time, you started saying, my mom is Peruvian. I grew up in Peru. I moved there when I was 10 years old. And that culture, right? And I think everybody's like, no, bike culture, but at least the culture in Latin America is like everything. Life is about drinking. Weekends, I guess same thing, or I guess here in the States. But the culture is really heavy in drinking, and it's okay not to be that person, right, that doesn't drink. I think a lot of it is not be yourself, not have to follow because everybody drinks, and you're really not missing out on anything. Your relationships might change, and that's okay. I guess that's my word of advice would be, it can change, and it not necessarily for the worst. It can be better, but sometimes relationships do change because you're interested in different kind of things.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And also that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, and you have to make one decision and stick with it forever. And I think what you're alluding to there is that sort of curiosity. If you can start to be curious about, for instance, what am I actually getting out of it? Why do I actually drink so much? Or why do I actually drink always in that situation? And it's often in those situations where you're with your best friends of the best party, and people go, oh, aren't you missing out? Aren't you missing out? Well, no, it's a great party, and I'm with my great friends. And for me, that's just numbing it. And often I'd say, no, I don't need it. And they feel, oh, you don't need it. What are you saying? I need it. But no, I don't need it anymore. And I'm not missing out. Yeah, I really, really get that. And so, well, we're drawing to a close here now. So we always ask as our final question, what are the 3 words that sum up alcohol freedom for you? Do you have 3 words for us?
I did, and I thought about it. I thought about it a lot, and what I liked doing is like, I'm gonna write this. When you said you were gonna ask me, I was like, I'll write this down, whatever comes to me, and then I'll do it again. And then I did it 3 times, and I still stuck to the 3 words that came to mind the first time. So the first one is empowerment, because I think I can live my life on my own terms. That's one. Balance. It's hard to explain, but that's the I feel my emotion. I have balance with my emotion and choices that I do. And then the third one is authenticity. Again, we've talked about it's how I show up, and it's what you get is what you see, So, and how I show up for myself, and not only for myself, but for others.
Really good.
So,
Yeah, they are beautiful, and it speaks volumes to this transformation that we undergo that has very little to do with alcohol at all, and everything to do with being able to just show up for yourself and then show up for others. I just remember the first time that I met Barry in person, and actually both times we'd met. And it's this very strange and wonderful sensation because you feel sort of like more vulnerable than you would be, because there's nothing else there other than just you two as friends being together, because you're choosing each other. We're not choosing to go out and
Yeah.
we're not choosing to go out and drink. We're not choosing to go and do something else. We've chosen to be with one another and connect. And there's something that's like a rising up of joy and excitement when you, first of all, are choosing yourself. So yeah, whether you drink every second day or once a week now, or whatever, it's about that realization that you can start to choose yourself and then choose others to share that space with. It's super exciting.
yes.
Yeah, I love what you said. So empowerment, balance, and authenticity. Yeah, they really ring true for me as well. Corina, it's been a pleasure and a delight talking with you. We haven't had a huge opportunity to talk about what you're doing, and I'm sure lots of people would love to have you as a coach going forward. So how might people find you, and what's on the horizon for you work-wise?
Yes. So you can find me at theafplanet.com. Either there's social media, your Instagram, Facebook pages, but also through this Naked Mind, I found other coaches that are bilingual that speak Spanish. So we're trying to put together different things that are just more for our Hispanic population. We do things not only in Spanish, but a little bit of English too. So for those that culturally have those two languages going on and understand both languages, or even if you want to learn, I guess, Spanish or English, you can join us. We've created a Facebook group. It's called Sin Resaca, Hangover Free, for those that same translation of Sin Resaca. And we have a lot of stuff coming up soon in the next couple of months. So just kind of stay tuned and look us up.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes so people know how to. We'll have the links to get hold of you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being and really getting to Justine. I had some chance to talk to you, but Barry, this has been first time, so it was
it's been
meeting
lovely.
you
Thank
and
you.
talking with you.